What's up, fellas? Finally have a good week, or actually I should say 2 decent weeks back to back. So that's a surprise. It's a good note. Let's talk about what happened last week. Give you the picks for this week. One thing I will tell you right off the top is it is still going to be a lot of teasers. I'm going to give you the way that I'm teasing them. I'll give you all the different legs that I'm doing. But if you decide that you do want to, maybe do something different or kind of mix and match the legs, it's up to you. But let's get into last week first. So I had a couple picks here. We had a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Probably about 7 picks, depending on how you played them. Again, if you didn't watch, there was a second video on Sunday morning, and there might be another video this coming Sunday morning. Those are typically teasers. So I mentioned this in that Sunday video, but really the 2 times to use teasers are 1 to get through a number that you want, right, getting a key number, and 2 when you think the line is so sharp that having a 6 or 7 point swing your direction really is a huge advantage. So if you really think, like most of us do, that come Sunday morning these lines are super sharp, they have been massaged into perfect numbers, and how often do you see one team is favored by 1 or 1.5, and then that team ends up winning by 2 or 3, right? And how many times do we see the total at 44 or 43.5 or something like that, and it ends at 44 or 43 or something like that? So if we are thinking that Sunday morning before kickoff these numbers are as sharp as they're going to be, then a 6 or 7 point swing in your direction, especially if you're going to get key numbers, is huge. So that's kind of the route I've been going the last 2 or 3 weeks. Hadn't always been posting it in the channel because I wasn't really doing that. Most of my quote unquote gambling career, I've been told don't bet Sunday mornings. You want to get in early, you want to get the numbers in early, and that's true because there are a lot of good numbers that come out early in the week. But if you can't get in really early, the next best thing may be to come in really late, or at least that's where I'm seeing success this year. So anyways, on to the picks. So what we had with the first video was Ravens and Steelers under 44, teased with the Bills down to -2 at that point. That one was a hit, and that really was not ever in question. The Bills took some time to get going in their game. I believe the first half they scored 3 points or something. It was a very, very slow half, but once they came alive, they came alive pretty well. At the end, Robert Saleh kicks a field goal, and Bills win by 8. So you did need the teaser in that particular leg because the line was about 9.5 to 10 depending on when you got it, or 9 to 10. So you did need the teaser to cover if you took the Bills on that one. So good on us on that side. The other part, the Ravens Steelers, that stayed very well under. It was 16 to 14, which total was 30. The line was 37, but we had teased it up to 43.5 or 44 depending on which video you were watching. So again, both of those hit, not really ever in question. 49ers -3.5 was a lean for that video, something that I did put money on, and I mentioned it in the video. Just another pick on there. But that one was another one that was just really never in question. Game ended 35-7, and it really wasn't even that close. The next one we had was the Eagles -1 with the Cardinals tease, and this is where it gets a little tricky. So there was 2 teasers, and I usually don't do this, and honestly, kind of posting these out there was, I don't want to call it a mistake, but just kind of an oversight, because 2 of the teasers, or one of the teasers, was just a duplicate of 2 other picks that I had already put out there. So the first one was Eagles -1, but the Cardinals up to 7.5. The Eagles, obviously, they covered easily, right? They won by, God, I think they're still scoring on the Giants right now. The Cardinals, with Kyler Murray going down, really screwed us out of that one. But the plus side to that, and I mentioned it even in the video, was that when you were teasing the Cardinals, because they were the Monday night game, the other sides of those picks that we made, once that first leg hit, you could go in and pretty much guarantee yourself a win by just taking the Patriots on the money line, because the money line was -120. Secondly, though, I had even mentioned you may want to look to play them, and I even put it on Twitter. If you follow me on Twitter, at AG_sports21, that if you looked into the live game lines, the Patriots, you could have got them at plus money on the money line. At some point in, I believe, the second quarter, you could have even gotten them at like +3. So a lot of different outs on these. So the end of the week here ends at 4-3, but two of the losses, I should say, were both tied to that Cardinals leg of the teaser, and you could have easily hedged out of both of those by just taking either one of those methods I just talked about. So I can tell you personally, I'll rack it up to 4-3, but I didn't lose the 2 units that would have been lost had I not been able to hedge out of that. So keep that in mind if you can. What they used to have was called like an open teaser, where you would make one play for like the 12 o'clock game, and then you would make your second leg of the teaser like the Sunday night game or the afternoon game or whatever. And so once you won that first one, you could, call into your bookie or call into your casino or whatever, and kind of take the money line on the other side to guarantee yourself a win. So same thing happened here. But that was the first one with the Cardinals. The second one with the Cardinals was going back to the Bills because the line had moved. Bills -3 with the Cardinals +8.5. Again, Bills still covered. I also had this all sorts of ways, and unfortunately, I just didn't catch it in time, or else I wouldn't have had the Cardinals in so many teasers. But either way, the same thing on this one. So those are 2 of the losses. Getting back to the wins, though, another one that I had a duplicate of, and I just kind of mentioned it in both videos, was the Ravens again under 44 with the Steelers. Obviously, again, that one stayed very well under. But the second part of this one was different. It was the Vikings-Lions over 45. So that game flew over. That was great. A lot of people were not necessarily on that one. And I was kind of surprised because the Vikings defense hadn't looked good. The Lions offense was rolling. And really, I was kind of shocked that there wasn't more talk about the over in that game. So again, we get the hit on that one. The other one, and this was just a bad read, I guess, on my end, was a teaser, but a same game teaser, and that was the Eagles -1 with the under 50. And this was mainly because I really thought Saquon was going to be sitting out in this game, and it sort of went according to plan in that I thought the Giants were going to possibly get shut down early in the game and then just kind of, wave the white flag and start getting ready for the game against Washington, and that is pretty much what happened. What screwed me over is that I did not think the Eagles were going to continue pouring it on. Like I said, I'm almost positive they're out there still scoring right now. Like, if you look at them live, they're not even practicing. They're just continuing to score at MetLife Stadium. So they blew up, and I think they went to like 48 points on their own. So we lost the under on that one. So that was the third loss. So again, out of all 3 losses, really only one of them ended up taking money out of the bankroll. The 4 wins, those racked up, so that was a good week. And looking to go back to it again this week with some similar plays, again, kind of sticking back to the teaser mentality. I'm going to give you the lines now, and like I said, the way that I'm playing them, but really I like all sides of these teasers. So if you decide, I really only like these 2 or these 2, feel free to kind of mix and match. My favorite one is going to be the Broncos and the Cardinals under, and it's going to be under 43. So both of these teams very well could be and probably are going to be playing with their backup quarterbacks. The Cardinals for sure, missing Kyler Murray, look like a team that's just ready to throw in the towel. Their season's done. They have a lot of players missing. Coach isn't really sure what's going to be going on. He's under contract, but there's a lot of talk about him kind of being on the hot seat. Broncos, on the other hand, also missing Russell Wilson. Brett Rippon, even their backup, has some kind of lingering issues going on. Their coach sucks. They're also another team that's really not, impressing anybody. I wouldn't say that they're completely throwing in the towel yet, but hasn't really looked good for them at any point this season. We're going to go with the under 43. So like I said, 43 is a key number. It is a 7-point tease, but the 43 is going to get us really 3 key numbers in this one, and that's the 37, a 41, and the 43. The 41 and the 43 being the biggest key numbers with a lower scoring game. And you can kind of see that if you're looking through the rest of these totals, because again, most people will tell you don't tease totals, and again, that's something else that has been kind of the motto in professional gambling for as long as I can remember, but this year is kind of proving that wrong, or maybe this is just an off year where you want to kind of play into these, faux pas, right, into like professional gambling. But you can tell that 47, 43, 44, and even 41 to some extent are kind of key numbers with the total, just simply by looking at the totals that the books are putting out there and the numbers that they're very hesitant to move off of or move very far off of. So most people know 3 and 7, those are the key numbers for the side, and then 6 and 10 are kind of like lesser key numbers. When it comes to totals, though, like I said, 37, 41, 43, and then 47 and 51 after that. So if you look at the totals that are out there, 37, 43, 43, 48, 44, 49, 48, 37, 36, 44. You're seeing very, very key numbers. The books are aware of this. I have not heard a lot of talk about this, but is becoming very prevalent, especially in this lower scoring season, that these numbers that are direct factors or very close to it of 7s and 6s are showing up more and more in these lower scoring games and just this year in total. So if and when you can get through several key numbers with one tease, you definitely want to do that. And like I said, the Broncos Cardinals gives us that opportunity to get through the 37 completely, through the 41 completely, and then up to the 43. So that's the first leg of my personal favorite teaser. The second one, though, is the Chargers Titans. And the Chargers Titans, we're going to go with the over 40.5. So same thing, 47, 44, 41. You're getting 3 key numbers with the total on this one. But secondly, as far as just looking at the games in these, I kind of explained Cardinals, Broncos, backup quarterbacks. Broncos have an amazing defense. That's still there. Randy Gregory is coming back for the Broncos this week. So they're getting just a little bit more depth on the defensive line. That is going to be the best unit in this on the field for that game on either side of the ball. So we're looking at a defensive, lower scoring game, and the Broncos, what's the stat? They could be like 9-3 or whatever the hell it is now. Had their offense only scored like 17 points. Last week they had a pretty good showing against one of the worst defenses in the league, which is the Chiefs. Cardinals defense not too much better, but if the Broncos have the opportunity to just run and salt a game away, that's the way Nathaniel Hackett wants to play it, which is, again, why we're going to go with the under 43. Chargers, Titans, almost the exact opposite. Both of these offenses are good. They can be very potent, but more importantly, they are going up against the weakness of the opponent. So the Titans, obviously, a really, really good, strong running team with Derrick Henry. Chargers, absolute worst at stopping the run. I believe they're 32nd or 31st right now after last week at stopping the run per DVOA. Opposite, fact here, opposite like play style for the Chargers. Chargers are great at passing the ball. They absolutely suck at running the ball. And the Titans have that exact defense where they can stop the run really, really well, like the number 2 team at stopping the run, but they are god-awful at stopping the pass. And you saw that last week. They just could not do anything to stop the pass against the Jaguars, which is why Trevor Lawrence had a big day, and the Titans ended up losing that game. Because both of these offenses just have to do what they're good at, and they're going to have a good showing. They're going to take advantage of their opponents. I want to take the over, and I want to get all those key numbers because I think even if for whatever reason one team or the other shuts down the other offense, 41 is not a big ask. 41, like I said, is a key number for low-scoring games, and something like a Broncos-Cardinals game, I could see us getting to 41. This game in particular, like I said, is a really, really strong play for me. So that's my first teaser and the first 2 sides that I really, really like this week. Next, I'm going to go back to the Ravens. It's going to be Ravens-Browns under 44. Ravens defense is really coming alive, really looking good. It looks better each and every week. The Ravens offense, most likely still without Lamar Jackson, could be without Tyler Huntley due to the concussion, maybe playing a third-string quarterback. On top of that, there is going to be some weather involved in that game, which is just going to make this an even slower-paced game. Now, the Browns on the other side coming into with Deshaun Watson's third game, he has not looked good. He's bounced passing balls. He just hasn't really made a lot of improvements here. Now, Kevin Stefanski has come out and said he wants Deshaun Watson passing deeper and further against the secondaries. I will tell you right now, that's not what you want to do against this Ravens defense. The Ravens have been absolutely amazing at shutting down your passing game and just really, getting pressure on the quarterback and even being sometimes really good ball hawks out there, depending on who they're going against and kind of who they can maybe key in on. Especially with a guy like Amari Cooper, who is just so great off the line and so quick off the line. I don't think I would be trying to ask Deshaun Watson to hold the ball any longer and try to make these deep passes when he's already kind of struggling on shorter passes. Typically, a struggling quarterback, their accuracy doesn't get better as they throw further. So I don't like the game plan from the Browns. The one thing that does kind of concern me with this one is the Ravens possibly having a field day at just running the ball against this terrible Browns rush defense, especially because they're having such health issues with their quarterback. I could see the Ravens running the ball a lot. J.K. Dobbins still isn't 100%. Gus Edwards should be 100%. So they could have some success on the ground. But even if that's the case, the Ravens' red zone offense has not looked good. They're really, really struggling once they get there to convert into touchdowns. And with a low-scoring team and both teams that are probably going to take very long to move the ball, going on very long drives, if you have just one or two of those drives either end in 0 points because of flags or a missed kick or anything, fumble, something like that, that's going to really hurt if you're trying to get the over or in this game. Secondly, though, because the Ravens are and have been settling for field goals and they have a guy like Justin Tucker that they trust, they're not really pushing the envelope. If it's 4th and 1 and they're on like the 15, for the most part, they're just taking the 3 points, knowing that their defense is so good, knowing that they're able to win games like that and just kind of grind out these dirty, ugly games. That's fine with them. They're not trying to force it, and they're going to take what they can get, and that's pretty much it. Tyler Huntley's red zone efficiency is even worse than Lamar Jackson's was, and you got to assume that the third stringer is going to be even worse than that. So, especially if the Browns can turn the Ravens into a very one-dimensional team with, again, a quarterback that they may or may not really trust to pass the ball and receivers that aren't really, quote-unquote stars in the league, I definitely see this one being an under. And if we're getting those key numbers again, up to 41 and the 43, and even going up to 44, which is kind of like a minor key number with totals, I really like that side as well. Second leg of that one is going to be the Steelers-Panthers, under 44.5. Now, the Steelers-Panthers, again, a lot of the same arguments I've made for these other teams, right? Steelers most likely missing their starting quarterback, probably going to be playing Mitch Trubisky, and word on the street here is that it may even be Mason Rudolph starting in this game. Either one, Trubisky or Rudolph, don't really inspire me. They both have a very similar, play style. They want to pass very short. Typically, they want to get the ball out relatively quick. But Trubisky may have the tendency to hold on a little bit longer just because he can kind of run with the ball some. But at their best, both of those quarterbacks want to go on very long dink and dunk drives, kind of rely on their running back to get them out of some situations and just go as methodically as possible down the field. And if that's the case, and especially if we're thinking the Steelers have a shot to win in this game, which I think that they do, I think it's going to be just a very long, grueling, arduous game because the Panthers on the other side, almost the exact same, game plan. They don't really want Sam Darnold there. They've had a rotating door on the quarterback all season long, from Baker Mayfield to PJ Walker to now Sam Darnold. They just have not really found a guy that they trust. Sam Darnold was even quoted last week saying that he knows it's a running team. They're using guys like Donta Foreman to move the ball, and they're going up against in a really, really good Steelers defense. Now, Steelers haven't been amazing. TJ Watt just doesn't seem to be playing at 100% just yet, but they are really good at least making their opponents go as slow as possible, take as much time off the clock as possible, and kind of bringing them into this muck of just, we're going to we're going to let you get the 2-3 yards at a time, but you better play perfect because your margin for error when you're playing the Steelers is very, very slim if you do not have a potent offense, and the Panthers don't. I could see this game very well being like a 14-17 kind of game, very similar to like what we saw with the Ravens Steelers last week. Anytime you're going to give me like a 3-point game, if I'm taking the side, I'm taking the Steelers. The Panthers, I even mentioned this last week, were just in a prime spot to beat the Seahawks. They had the rest advantage. The Seahawks were just kind of in a bad spot game, and the Panthers had just come off their bye week, had really gave their team a chance to implement some new things after losing Matt Rule. So they had just in a really, really good spot last week. They don't have those same advantages this week. And so, again, if I'm taking a side, I'm taking the Steelers in this game. But more importantly, I'm taking the under 44.5, and I'm going to partner that with the Ravens-Browns also under 44. So that's the second teaser in this one. Now, the third teaser is going to be sides, and these are going to be somewhat more traditional as far as your teasers are concerned. So I'm taking the Bills down to -1. Bills, Dolphins, you probably already know, but Dolphins are on a 3-game road trip, this being the third leg of that trip. The Dolphins have traveled from Miami to California to play the 49ers, stayed there a week to then play the Chargers, flew home Monday, just barely got home, and now their game got pushed up to Saturday. So not only do they not get home after 2 weeks until Monday, but then they only have a few days to practice and then head up to Buffalo, so to the another corner of the country where it's going to be cold weather impact. And you've probably already heard this as well, but they apparently needed heaters in Los Angeles, which, if that's your measure of cold, there's a whole another ball game waiting for you when you get to Buffalo. So the rest advantage definitely on the Bills side. The travel advantage definitely on the Bills side. This is a back-to-back home games for the Bills. Home crowd. Weather advantage doesn't really help either team very much here. I think a lot of people are on the Dolphins when you're giving them the 7 points. And pretty much every podcast I've listened to, every YouTube channel I've listened to this week has been on the Dolphins plus the 7.5, or they're teasing the Bills down. I'm personally on the Bills tease down portion of this. I would consider taking the Bills minus a 7 just because it's a good spot for them, but I'm going to play it safe. I'm going to get the teaser, get them down to the -1, and then I'm going to pair that with the Colts plus 10. So the Colts plus 10, again, similar advantages. We're going back to the rest advantage factor here. Worked out very well for us last week. Hoping that's going to play out well for us again this week. Colts coming off a bye. Vikings not having the bye, obviously. So Colts have the immediate rest advantage. On top of that, though, the play style, again, I've said this several times now, and it's worked out for us each and every time, that the Vikings cannot stop the run. They can't really stop the pass either, for that matter. But specifically when they play teams who have an okay offensive line to above average, who like to run the ball, who want to run the ball, the Vikings have not found an answer just yet. They got trounced by the Eagles earlier this year. They got beat to shit by the Cowboys earlier this year. They just lost against the Lions, who they're okay. They're not on the level of the Cowboys or the Eagles, but they're good at what they do. And the Colts, maybe they're not as great as the Cowboys and the Eagles either. However, their offensive line is finally coming back together. It's finally healthy. Jonathan Taylor's finally healthy, coming off his bye week. You have a Jeff Saturday who finally had a week to really get his team together, his coaching staff that is, implement a game plan, kind of put his mark on that team. Something that we just saw last week with, and I apologize, I'm forgetting the coach now, but you know what? Sorry, I just mentioned too. Steve Wilkes, the coach for the Panthers, we just saw this happen to him last week. He finally got a week off to kind of game plan, prep, put his name on everything with the Panthers, and they went out and beat the hell out of the Seahawks. We're going to see that same exact advantage with the Colts this time, with Jeff Saturday having a full week off. The Colts defense has been really, really good. I know that if you're looking back at the score, they got their ass handed to them by the Cowboys. However, one, the Cowboys defense is much better than the Vikings. Secondly, for about 3/4 of that game, the Colts-Cowboys game was actually pretty competitive. The Colts were only down by about 2 points for the majority of that game. And then it just kind of went sideways with a bunch of turnovers and things because they were trying to force the action. They were trying to get the win and just kind of dug themselves a hole. The Vikings do not have the defense the Cowboys have. They're not going to get as much pressure on Matt Ryan. It wouldn't be very surprising to me, at least, if Matt Ryan went out there and actually had a good game, got a couple touchdowns through the air. And it also wouldn't be surprising if Jonathan Taylor just rips through that weak-ass Vikings defensive line. So give me the Colts. I'm even going to put just a pinch on the money line, but give me the Colts as the other end of that teaser. We're going to get them to 10. So the Colts plus 10. Even if the Vikings manage to get the win, and the reason I'm thinking that they could get the win in this one, even after all those advantages I just gave to the Colts, is strictly because the Vikings are at home and because the Vikings can put together a potent offense. The Colts defense, like I said, should be and is able to kind of slow that down, put the brakes on that, and stymie that offense a little bit. However, good offenses are good offenses. You know that the league that we're in, and at any time, any given week, those offenses can explode. And if that's the case, and they're at home, the Vikings can pull this one out. But even if they do that, I think this is going to be a closer game. I don't see any route to the Vikings being able to put up some 21 or 28 point victory. Their defense is just not good enough to keep the other team off the other team's offense out of the end zone. And if the Colts get dragged into this high shootout game, while they typically wouldn't play that kind of game and probably don't usually score that much against a weaker defense who's going to give them all the advantages, they could keep up with the Vikings in this one. I don't see the Vikings winning by more than 7 or 8 points, honestly. So give me the Colts plus the 10, and then just a pinch on the money line. So those are the teasers. Now, you're probably wondering, well, I haven't talked about the Washington game yet. And don't worry, I'm getting there. It's still my favorite play for the week. It's still probably the biggest play I'm going to have for the entire season. And if you didn't listen to this last week, again, a lot of the same advantages I was just talking about with all these other teams, I'm going to talk about again. Washington, again, gets the rest advantage. They had last week as their bye week. Giants had to play the Eagles last week, so the Giants played a divisional opponent. Now, the Giants, like I said earlier, didn't really try very hard for the entire game. They probably gave it more of an effort in the first half and then kind of just called it a day. But the fact is they still played. They still had some injuries to kind of deal with, like Saquon Barkley's neck, some other things going on. And more importantly, it was a week where they really weren't focused entirely on Washington. They kind of had to split their attentions, knowing that this was the big game they needed to get ready for. Even with the loss of the Eagles, they were still very much in the playoff hunt. This game is really what's going to determine where they're at and kind of where the rest of their season goes. Whoever wins this game is in a prime spot to get in the playoffs. Whoever loses is not necessarily mathematically done, but it's going to be a very hard road for them to stay in the playoffs, especially if the Seahawks can pull out a win. So, Washington, like I said, Washington's coming into this game with a definite rest advantage. Also, Washington was the quote-unquote loser of the first game. It was technically a tie, so on the scoreboard it is 20-20, but Washington struggled and they had to come back at the end in the fourth quarter to tie that game up to push it to overtime. If you watch that game, a lot of the advantages, a lot of the game play went the Giants' way. Now, the Giants were at home, but secondly, if you're looking at the stats, and again, stats I've been putting up since the summertime, the same stat I've been putting up for about 3 years at this point, the winner of Game 1, when they play just 2 weeks apart, only covers the spread about 30% of the time on that second matchup. Again, that's a rare occurrence. It doesn't happen every single division game, obviously, and it only happens once a year on average. But if the two teams play, and then there's a bye week, and then they play again, typically the team that won the first game outright loses and especially does not cover in that second matchup. So for that purpose, I'm giving the Giants the quote unquote win because they did cover against the spread in that first game. They were 8-point dogs. So Washington gets that advantage as well. Lastly, though, because this is their second game, we do expect more scoring. We have Washington, who had a whole week off to not just get more tape on the Giants and watch even more of what they're doing against a divisional opponent, but watch a game that they can kind of go back just 2 weeks ago, pull their own game tape up, and find out where their deficiencies were and where they had success at. And a guy like Ron Rivera, while I don't think he's the best coach, he's a veteran coach, and I do believe he knew how to use that week, and he's going to go back with the rest of his coaching staff and find those little edges out there. Even if they have to bring in a consultant, I do believe that they're going to be trying to take advantage of the little edges that they have against the Giants. Also, though, the Washington defense getting healthier, did a good job stopping Saquon last week, or 2 weeks ago, I should say. They saw kind of how the Giants offense looks when Saquon isn't at 100% last week, and I don't think there's any more surprises the Giants have to throw at this Washington team. Giants, again, obviously have the same, tape from their first game, and they can go back and see what advantages they had or deficiencies they had. But you're going into this game with, roughly 6 days of prep time, whereas Washington had a full 2 weeks. Washington also, again, rested, healthier, all that kind of stuff, and they're playing at home. So if I was a Giants fan, I'd be pretty pissed right now that Washington, a divisional opponent, is getting all these advantages. Lastly, though, I'm going to also make a parlay on this game, a same-game parlay. I typically don't do a lot of parlays, and when I do have a parlay, I like to make sure that they're correlated, meaning that the story in my mind of how this game goes impacts both sides of the parlay. So, like I said, Washington minus the 4.5. That's, again, my favorite, my biggest play. But parlaying that with the over 40.5. So, again, the first game ended up at a tie at 20-20. The second game, we expect more scoring. We expect these teams to come out a little bit faster to kind of know more the weak spots on the defense that they want to attack, and at least to come out scoring a little bit faster than they did in game one. If all of that is correct, or even if just one of those is correct, we should see some more scoring here. Now, it doesn't mean we're going to see some huge blowout, but I do believe something like a 24-17, a 27-20 kind of game could be on the board here, and either one of those gets us to 41 at least, and it gets us the over. So something like that is really where I'm gonna try to kind of pick my spots here with the parlay. Like I said, the biggest one for me is just the Washington to win, cover the 4.5. But give me the parlay for just like a quarter of a unit to really maximize the output on that particular game. So those are the picks, guys. Like I said, there may be something else that comes out Sunday morning, just depending on what I hear, what's going on, injuries pop up, all that kind of stuff between now and then. So thank you for listening. Thanks for giving me the time. Thank you for sticking, through the season with me. Hopefully everyone's having some good luck now, kind of turning everything around for the end of the season. Let's just finish strong, win some money, and get the hell out of here. Thanks again. Y'all have a good day.